Never let anyone shame you for trying to be a better wife or girlfriend. Your relationship is not a cactus. It needs maintenance. Hi ladies, welcome back to the feminine universe. I am so happy to have you here. Healthy marriages and relationships are such beautiful things. The companionship, the inside jokes, the support, the love, it's a wonderful thing. But just like physical health requires maintenance like eating right, working out, and checkups, marriages also require certain things to keep them healthy. The storybooks forgot to tell us that happily ever after takes work, okay? The best relationships are the ones where both people want to be there and both people are willing to show up every day and put in that work. Relationships can be a tricky subject to tackle because everyone has their opinions and their anecdotes, and everyone's experience and situation is different. So to save time, I will put all my disclaimers on the screen for the types of couples and relationships that this advice would work best for. Because as I said in the Power of Suggestion video, my videos provide advice, not black magic. So be realistic. Don't think applying this to a narcissist or cheater or abuser is going to result in miracles. I also want to make a point of saying that I personally do view dating relationships differently than I view marriages. As they say, ultimately you're single until you're married. I believe that the guy who stands up and announces to the world that he wants forever with you and makes vows for the good times and the bad, in sickness and in health, deserves more emotional labor and physical investment than the guy who's just with you at the moment. That's just my logic. Of course, everyone is entitled to their own. But I felt that it was worth saying because some women end up very mad or very disappointed in the end when they realize that they spent the best years of their lives building up and pouring into men, basically in preparation for the next woman. So I thought it was important to point out that I think my ladies in relationships and not yet marriages should modify this advice and their behavior in their relationship accordingly. Let me know if you want specific content on that. With that being said, let's get into 6 wonderful ways to maintain the health of your marriage and keep your man hooked and happy. I think the 4th tip is a great one for reigniting some spice and mystery. The first and most important step to keeping your man hooked and happy is to make certain that your man knows for sure, without a doubt, that you are on his team. This is real life. You might not always say or do the right thing. We all mess up. But if a man has that overall feeling that you are on his team, you mean him well, and you have his back, you'll get the benefit of the doubt in most situations, and that will save you guys a lot of time, misunderstandings, and drama down the line. We're going to get a little in depth here because this is the foundation. If you don't have this one, the rest of the tips are kind of moot. There are 2 groups of things that will determine whether your man feels like you're on his team or not. The first group is made up of negative things that you do, and the second group is made of the positive things you fail to do. So the negative things that are not going to make him feel like you're on his team tend to be more obvious things, like being combative, disagreeing with everything he says, constantly getting loud, being blatantly disrespectful, belittling him in front of others, always assuming the worst about him, and so on. But there are lots of other smaller things that many women are doing without realizing that also cause damage. Things like making him look bad inadvertently or accidentally. I was around a woman a while back who kept making references to her husband being unemployed post-pandemic. She kept saying things like, "I'm not sure if we'll be able to make it with John being unemployed and all. I'm not sure we'll be able to participate with John being unemployed and all." I truly don't think that she had any shaming intentions, but I just remember it so clearly because I could feel him cringe and shrink each time she said it, but she wasn't in tune with him enough to realize that it was making him uncomfortable. Another thing is telling his business, not just with things like work, but his very personal business, like you telling your friends about an issue he's dealing with downstairs. I'm not sure how I'm allowed to phrase that, but maybe he's been stressed, or maybe he's taking a medication that's interfering with, blood flow. And now your friend tells her man, and next time he's with the boys, he's the butt of all the jokes. That's a big no-no. You just jeopardized your confidant status. Another one that many ladies are guilty of is telling your business as a couple. Listen, your friends and family don't need to be filled in or involved in every little struggle or disagreement you and your man go through, especially if they already don't get along or see eye to eye with your guy, or maybe they just don't know him much yet, so they can't really give that benefit of the doubt. Even after you two have made up and moved on as a couple, your friends and family are still looking at him crazy. They're still thinking, I can't believe he said that, or I can't believe he did that, and they're holding these things against him, or even worse, throwing these things back in his face. You've forgiven him and they still haven't. And now it's just awkward every time he has to be around them, all because you couldn't deal with your issues privately. Now, the second group, the positive things you may fail to do, are things like missing opportunities to compliment him and make him look good. This can also make it feel like you're not rooting for him or that you don't appreciate him. Another woman was talking about how her friends were kind of gushing about how much her husband, who works outside of the home, also helps out around the house. And she said something along the lines of, yeah, well, I'm not about to compliment him for doing the basics or the bare minimum, however she worded it. But imagine that in the reverse. You're having dinner with a couple, the wife is a stay-at-home mom, and one of the men says to her husband, your wife is such a great cook, you're so lucky to come home to these home-cooked meals all the time. And the husband goes, yeah, well, I have to get up and go make the money every day. The least she can do is cook. You see how ugly that sounds? Sure, it's expected that the stay-at-home spouse is usually going to be responsible for taking care of the home and preparing the meals, but saying that in such an abrasive, unappreciative way just comes across very ugly and definitely not united. No one's telling you you have to kiss the ground your husband walks on for helping out. But when the friends were complimenting him, simply saying something like, yep, that's my man, or yeah, I definitely got a good one, is enough to make him feel appreciated. Doing and not doing some of these things are all reasons that will subconsciously make a man feel like he can't trust you with everything, that you don't think twice about exposing him or his problems, that you two can't deal with your problems privately as a couple, or that you simply don't appreciate him. And all these things can put up an invisible wall between you two that will rear its head and manifest negatively in other parts of your relationship. The next tip is to know men in general and know your man specifically. There are things that apply to most men in general, and then there are things that are going to apply to your man specifically. It's absolutely necessary to know both. When it comes to knowing men in general, these are the things you can read up on and observe about men from a distance. The things you can learn from books, articles, studies, male relatives. Also from watching how men you know interact both with each other and with women. Now, knowing him specifically is about learning and appreciating what makes him unique as an individual. His strengths, his weaknesses, his preferences, upbringing, triggers, his goals, his desires. These are all things that will shape how he views the world and therefore how he behaves. You also have to know his individual personality traits. For example, I'll take one that can be a little controversial sometimes. Is he more or less territorial or jealous than average? Of course, not in an unhealthy or violent way, but just as some people are more neat freaks than others, some are more social, and some are more sticklers about being on time than others, there are also some people who just don't enjoy others getting too close or too chummy with their significant other. I'm sure we all know both men and women like this. And if that describes your man, maybe you giggling nonstop and kikiing with your head thrown back with other men at social events will get under his skin a little more than it would another man. There are literally people who don't enjoy going out with their significant others and end up in little petty arguments after every social event because of this. For the ladies listening who aren't married, these are some of the little things you've got to take into account when figuring out if you're compatible with someone. We focus so much on their careers and their bank accounts, which are absolutely important, don't get me wrong, but we sometimes overlook compatibility. How would you feel if your man made you feel invisible every time you're at a social function when there are other women in the room because he has to schmooze with them all and barely says 2 words to you the entire night? That kind of resentment builds up on either side. So it's important to make sure the two of you are similarly social or friendly so no one feels ignored or left out. I've heard women say things like, "It's not my problem if he can't socialize as a grown man." Baby, it became your problem when you decided to marry him. The two shall become one, remember? His problems are your problems, and your problems are his. You signed up for his good and his bad, just like he signed up for yours. Remember that. Generally speaking, we also know that men like to think they're choosing to do something, or to at least be asked for things nicely instead of demanded, tricked, or forced. But when it comes to your man specifically, this is free game right here. You have to know if he's more receptive to being asked for things or asked to do things in the mornings or in the evenings. Does he respond better to being asked after a workout when he's pumped, or only on a full stomach because he's a pouty, hangry baby when he hasn't eaten? Some men are the most receptive during pillow talk after getting some good loving, but some men are fast asleep after getting some, so you might mention something and it doesn't even really register to him. And now you're sitting there waiting for something that he doesn't even remember agreeing to. You can't just expect everything you read in a magazine or even in a well-researched study to apply to your man exactly. Same thing with exchanging girl talk with other women. It is great to get some insights and tips and tricks, but it doesn't mean it will work the same exact way with your man. General information is great, but you have to know your guy very specifically as well. You have to know the big things like his pain points and where you should never land low blows in an argument, as well as the little things like how he likes his coffee or his preferred breakfast dish. When the work wife knows these things better than the actual wife, there's a little bit of a problem. Another big thing is to know your husband's love language, to make sure you are communicating with him and loving on him in a way that he both understands and appreciates. I have a video on that I will link below, as well as the link to the official book on love languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. It's a must read. Moving on to the next tip, which is to be an experience. Now that we've gotten some of the housekeeping and the foundational things out of the way, let's have a little fun. Let's talk about being an experience. I've shared this mantra with you ladies before, which is don't just be an interaction, be the entire experience. This applies to life in general, but it's multiplied when it comes to men, especially to your husband. So to begin with, we know that men are visual. Use that to your advantage, baby. Knowing this biological fact is like having a little cheat code. When you're visually appealing, you don't even have to speak sometimes, and men just automatically start behaving certain ways. We've all experienced it. Well, your husband is not exempt from this. when you want to ask for something, or maybe when you know you're pushing it a bit, when you're about to have a little disagreement, or there's something you're at odds on, even something silly like where to go on vacation, looking good will make it that much easier to get your way. I don't care what anyone says, I will put money on this one. A man who likes you, which I'm assuming your husband does, will be that much more inclined to crumbling when you look like a snack. Because when your husband loves you and is a provider, he already wants to give you what you want. He already wants to see you happy, and he also wants to be the one to provide that happiness. You looking good only makes it that much easier for him. So to be an experience on the day-to-day, look good as often as possible, even at home. And before I get the groans and the eye rolls, I need to mention this. Women tend to be disappointed when the romance and relentless pursuing and those chivalrous gestures start to fizzle out. But men tend to wonder where the beautiful, well-kept, supportive woman they married went as well. It's a two-way street. And looking good around the house does not mean fishnet stockings or lingerie and stilettos while you bake a cake. I mean, if that's how you get down, I absolutely support it, but it's not necessary. A few matching sets in neutral colors with a comfortable but flattering fit is more than enough. You can mix and match them any which way and still look neat and put together. A few cute house dresses that are on the shorter side are also both comfortable and cute, and also pretty easy to move around in. And if he happens to get a peek of something while you're bending over to get things in and out of the oven, listen, that's between you two. What I'm saying is oversized t-shirts with holes and bleach splatters are not the only way to be comfortable at home. And don't forget a little lip gloss, or at least balm, because dry peeling lips will just never be cute to look at. It also goes beyond appearance. Remember, he has 5 senses, not just one. So think about the way you smell when he hugs you or when you walk by, the way you speak to him, how often you touch or caress him. We've gone through being an experience in life and how to awaken the different senses, so I will also link to that so you can watch or rewatch and see what you can apply to your relationship. Being an experience is also about taking things and moments that are just plain, ordinary, and unremarkable and making them memorable. I'll give you an example. Let's say he happens to join you on a shopping trip, or you both needed to do some shopping. If you're like me and you love perfume, you might take a detour to the perfume counter. Now, you could just let him sit on one of those ottomans or stand over in the corner just bored and waiting for you to finish. Or you could pick out 2 to 3 fragrances and have him smell them individually while telling him the type of lingerie that you think would go best with each. If you pick up something deep and sexy, you can spray it on a tester strip or on your wrist and say, I think this one would go best with something black, lacy, and a little bit see-through. What do you think? If you spray something floral, fruity, and girly, you say, this one is making me think of something light pink, maybe a baby doll, right? Then maybe you buy a bottle of it, and if you guys are feeling extra, you two can make a detour to Agent Provocateur or Vicky's or La Perla, and the two of you can try to find the type of lingerie you described to match the perfume. And voila, boring, uneventful shopping trip turned into a fun, sexy adventure that can continue when you get home. Or you can fold it up and tuck it away and say you're saving it for a special occasion or the next date night. Now he knows it's there, it's burned into his memory and just living right there in the back of his mind. I think this is a good time to say you do not, I repeat, you do not have to pull all these tricks out of the bag all the time. That would be A, exhausting, and honestly B, they'd lose their power a little bit. It's about doing just enough to surprise and excite him, and then just give him time to build up and crave the next surprise or adventure. I think for most relationships, a 75 to 80% chill mode with a 20 to 25% surprise rate would do the trick just fine. Because we don't always have time for adventures and Easter egg hunts. Most days, we just need to grab groceries and get home. But once in a while, create an experience, or better yet, be the experience. The next tip is to blow his mind. Come on, ladies, stay up here with me. We are in public after all. Now, while the last tip was about making mundane, everyday things memorable and really engaging some of his specific senses, this tip is about really getting into his head, messing with him a little bit, and staying on his mind. Marriage can get very comfortable and a little repetitive, so he can start to feel like he's got you all figured out, like he knows what you're about to say, what you're about to make, and what you're going to wear. So by not doing what's expected and bringing new things into the fold, it's really going to blow his mind a bit. Playing with his mind a little keeps him wondering and builds up the excitement. It also incorporates some of that delicious delayed gratification. So here are a few ideas on how to blow your husband's mind. First, look at him. Yes, make that eye contact. This tip is so underrated. So many people, especially after being together or living together for a while, really start to overlook this one. We don't have a lot of time to go into the studies now, but when you have some free time, just Google the effects or the power of eye contact on our bodies, our hormones, and our minds, and thank me later. So, when's the last time you really looked at your husband, like held his gaze for 5 to 10 seconds, or took the time to look him up and down after he got dressed up and is looking sharp? Or maybe after he got undressed before hopping into the shower or getting into bed. Or if he works out at home, think about popping in when he's working out, whether he's in great shape or trying to get in shape, and just look at him approvingly and say, "Don't mind me, I'm just taking a little peek at the process that keeps you looking all good." And leave after a minute or so. This doesn't have to be long to be impactful. In fact, it's better if it's short. You don't want this to be annoying or invasive on his process. Get in, get out. And sometimes just look at him and don't say anything at all. Let his imagination do the work. But just be sure to look at him. Another way to blow his mind is to dress differently than you usually do at home. Whatever it is that you're usually in when he gets home, or that you usually change into when you get home, switch that up for a few days or weeks at a time. Even if you're typically very sexy, switch into something a little more girly and innocent, or a little more girl next door and relaxed. Because this isn't just a matter of looking good, but of adding variety and creating a change of pace and doing something different than what he expects. You could also apply this to how you dress for date nights from time to time. Also, think about speaking or responding differently, especially when it comes to compliments. 7 out of 10 times in response to a compliment, I would say to go with something sweet like, "Oh, thank you," or "Thank you, you're so sweet." But once in a while, I suggest hitting him with something playfully cocky like, "I know that's right," and give him a little wink. Or one of my favorites, when he compliments you, you go, "What did you say?" And when he repeats it, you say, "I heard you, I just wanted to hear you say it again." Or, "I heard you the first time, but I just love to hear you say it." Then give him a quick peck. It's confident, cute, and again, it brings in that variety depending on what he's used to you saying. You can also bring some variety in what you cook. If there tends to be a bit of a regular rotation in your home, throw a different meal or a different type of cuisine in there from time to time. If you're not a really big cook or it's just been crazy busy, Maybe think about the way you plate or present the food that you order. If you guys always eat out of the boxes, maybe try setting the table sometimes, turning the lights low, and looking like an absolute goddess for absolutely no reason. It messes with his mind in the best of ways. He's thinking, I don't know what the heck is going on, but I like it. And for the last little angle on blowing his mind, create tension. This is all about ramping up the non-sexual touch in your relationship. Because men are so receptive to touch, touching him more than usual will really get him wondering what's going on. It will keep you on his mind, but mostly it will make him happy as heck. And this can be done just as a way to get closer, as touch tends to bond people. But I've also had several ladies who don't know each other tell me about using this as part of what they call the countdown. So I'll say this is a thing. Married ladies, feel free to chime in. But the countdown is basically when you know in advance that you plan on being intimate with your husband. So let's say it's 3 to 5 to 7 days beforehand, depending on how patient your husband is and how long he can hold out. But from that time, there's kind of a countdown where you're touching him so much more to ramp up or in anticipation of your time together. So whether it's more head rubs and scratching his scalp lightly with your nails, touching him while he drives, whether it's your hand on his or resting your hand on his arm or leg, but please don't go causing any accidents, ladies. Or you can also rub his shoulders at home or stroke his beard and just touch his face more often. Just more touch than what is usual, and he will definitely be on alert. He'll be thinking, what's going on? Where's all this love coming from? And please don't stop. If you're doing this as part of your countdown, the fireworks will definitely be there when you finally do have a night to yourselves. Part of creating the tension can also include incorporating the pullback kiss. But the pullback kiss can also stand on its own and be sprinkled in from time to time. This pullback kiss is really about remembering that there's more to kissing than just pecks. Married life is busy and definitely has its share of unsexy moments. From bills and taxes, to doctor's appointments and health scares, to crying babies and paying for college. It's so easy to get used to those quick hello, goodbye pecks. They are comforting and expected and become part of your routine. But sometimes they can lack a little passion. So once in a while, I want you to give a little pullback kiss. This is when he's giving you that peck on his way out or on your way out, and you just call him back a little or pull him back a little for a little more kissing, because you just need a little more. You want a little extra something. So you kiss him a little more, a little longer, and then you release him and send him on his way. Nothing further, simple as that. And lastly, even within marriage, I do believe you should let him pursue, but surprise him once in a while. Have your days, the days when you're feeling ready, you're feeling sexy, you're more open to advances, and create the environment to make it happen. Whether it's you're giving that look, you're saying those words, or you're wearing that thing. And if it's in your wheelhouse, you can even choose to do the pouncing once in a blue moon. You can choose to surprise him 10 to 20% of the time, depending on your dynamic. Next, let's bring the temperature down a little with the next tip, which is to bring peace and understand the power of your words. I try to teach women all the time that there is so much power in our words in general, but especially when it comes to men. As a wife, this power is only multiplied. We know from experience that life is tough on women in certain ways, but life is also tough on men in certain ways. If we think about how men generally interact with each other, there's a lot of jokes and a lot of ribbing, even when it's well intentioned. The emotional support structure is just very different. Women can do planned sleepovers, cry with each other, compliment each other's bodies, and go on intimate one-on-one friend dates where they pour their hearts out. If a woman gets dumped or cheated on, she has a plethora of people who will tell her that that man was trash anyway, while listing all of her positive attributes. If a guy gets cheated on, many times it makes him a point of ridicule. I'm saying all this to say that many women fail to realize that you are one of a few, if not the only form of positive reinforcement in your man's life, especially depending on the culture, family, and social environment he comes from. So the compliments, the congratulations, the "you're valuable, you look great in that, you take such great care of our family," those words are mostly or completely going to come from you. So that's one of the ways to really start to understand the power of your words and to use them to bring peace and contentment. Other times, using the power of your words looks like reminding him who he is. Usually, men are expected to be emotionally strong, but in the moments when he's unsure of himself, if he loses his job, or questions if he can close a deal or complete any other achievement, you have to be the one to remind him that he's that dude, he's that guy, he is that man. He's the guy that graduated top of his class or worked to put himself through school, and he deserves that job. He's the guy that will be the first in his family to earn that degree or to reach that tax bracket. He's the man that came to this country with the clothes on his back and made something respectable out of himself, whatever it is. Instead of just saying it's going to be great, you remind him why it will be great. Because he's great. He's done it once and he can do it again. Or if he's never done it, remind him that he has the skill set to do it. He doesn't need you to solve his problems. He just needs you to remind him of the greatness within him. Now, just because you have the power to uplift him, that doesn't mean that's your only job, or that you should do nothing but placate him or even lie to him. Because some women lead their men to be delusional, and that's never good for anyone. In reality, sometimes you have to use your words to push him to do better and be better. If he does something out of character or something that you don't like, it's okay to say, "I expect better than that from a man like you, babe." Instead of belittling him as a person, it shows that you think he's better than that the action or behavior is beneath him. In other words, you learn to belittle the action and not the man. And sometimes, instead of saying you love the restaurant or the bed and breakfast you've been going to for the last 10 anniversaries, when you're actually super tired of it, let him know you'd like to do something different. Saying something like, "I love that you discovered somewhere that we've both loved for so long, but I feel like we're in a newer place or a higher place as a couple, and I'd really like to try somewhere new. Maybe somewhere French, or maybe somewhere tropical. I'm so excited to see what you come up with." There you go. Your words hold so many different types of power, so use them wisely, because using them poorly diminishes the power that they hold. And lastly, dismiss any shame for being a good wife. Do not let anyone shame you for trying to be a better wife or girlfriend. People will sit there and read manuals on furniture and on caring for plants, or hundreds of articles on how to care for a pet, or spend obscene amounts of time researching celebrity or influencer tea, but will turn around and try to make you feel like the weirdo for trying to learn and be the best partner you can for someone who is doing right by you. Girl, embrace it, okay? Your relationship is not a cactus. It needs care and maintenance. There will always be some bitter Betty who was cheated on, who will try to come and tell you there's no point in being a great partner or in going above and beyond because it's going to end in fire and brimstone. Side note, please don't ever be that person. Don't be bitter Betty. I'm sure being cheated on is terrible, but don't rain on another woman's parade. Just because one relationship or marriage doesn't work out doesn't mean someone else's can't. I am all for wise counsel, sisterly advice, what to look out for, and all of that. But to blatantly shame a woman for being good to her husband, who for all intents and purposes has proven to be a good person to her, is just as toxic as the men who call being a good husband simping. There truly is a difference between being a single woman and being a wife. To go from thinking of the me to thinking of the we, and to manage a household and a family. And there is nothing wrong with continuing to educate yourself on that and always striving to be better. It takes work to make it work. I hope this was worth the wait for my married ladies. I've owed you this for a while. Hopefully this gave you a few ideas on how to bond, flirt, tantalize, and grow within your relationship, especially your marriage. Let me know what you thought, what was your favorite tip, and what you'd like to see the next time we touch on this kind of topic. I'll leave a few options on the screen. Until next time, ladies, stay feminine, stay focused, and have fun.